This is Mutual Reception Astrology, a production of the Moon Through the Signs.
Many of you already know that the moon is kind of your emotional self. It's the side that's hidden from most people. Where your sun is your conscious self, the moon is your emotional self. So we'll just start at Moon in Aries. So Moon in Aries is basically emotionally like an Aries, which means that emotionally they want to be first, they want to win. They're they have that Martian like directness with their emotional reactions. You're gonna have a hard time finding an Aries moon that isn't at least a little bit reactionary. So when you confront them, they're very likely to battle you. They're gonna be a little bit more loud, a little bit more boisterous, and anything that kind of increases kind of the lunar self. And in my opinion, I feel like alcohol um, really increases the lunar self. People become more their kind of emotional reactions rather than their conscious self, which is why with many people you'll see kind of a Jekyll and Hyde transformation. Aries moon in that state doesn't really change a lot in their emotional reactions. They're just louder about it. They're very likely, if there's controversy, to step in and make their point of view and how they feel about it heard. They feel it's very important to do that. They're not always diplomatic emotionally. Yeah, it's not really a big priority for. So now moving on to Moon in Taurus. So Moon in Taurus is Venus ruled. It's actually considered the exalted position. This would be like the 10 out of 10 moon. Um, it's very focused on drawing the things that are emotionally comforting towards itself. It wants to. How's this best expressed? It wants to have emotional stability. So, a person with a Taurus moon would really try to fill their life with patterns and with things and with people that make them feel good, that make them feel comfortable, that make them feel loved. Um, and in terms of how they express emotions, they'll be very stubborn emotionally because they've spent so long learning what their emotional patterns are often that they don't really, those patterns don't change easily at all. Even when sometimes kind of our emotional patterns are unconscious because they're inherited from our families, right? So um, Taurus's moons are very unlikely to change those unless they become conscious of it, and even then, it's going to be difficult to change ingrained patterns. The big goal for a Taurus moon is just to kind of continue towards emotional growth for themselves. Um, so then we get on to Gemini moon. Gemini moon people kind of detached from their emotions and kind of are of two minds of their emotions. A lot of Gemini moons will just kind of, when they feel something, they think about it almost immediately, right? They're like, oh, there's this feeling. What is this feeling? Why am I feeling it? Should I be feeling this feeling? So it's like almost immediately when the emotion comes up, the detachment comes up and the examination comes up. Um, this is not a super comfortable place for the moon to be because it's too detached. It doesn't allow itself to express its emotional nature very easily. Um, a lot of people that are more deeply emotional um, feel like Gemini Moon is like superficial or shallow, not really coming to the table like with their actual emotions and mostly just brushing them kind of under the rug, which is unfortunate. But what are you going to do? Sometimes you're born with a Gemini moon. What's interesting though is Gemini moons really learn about other people's emotional reactions, and they can get a really good understanding, kind of almost a scholarly understanding of human emotions that is not available to everybody. So that's pretty. Moon in Cancer. So Moon rules Cancer. Moon is super comfortable in Cancer. It's like a 9 out of 10 position. Um, the issue with Moon in Cancer is um, they go through real cycles. So people often accuse Cancer suns, people born, late June to late July, of being moody. It's definitely true. It's a pretty fair cop. I think most cancers will admit to that. But a Cancer moon can actually be even more moody and more cyclically moody. So, Cancer moon will usually go through a period of kind of not really uh, kind of closed off emotionally from the new moon, and then opening up to like almost crazy open emotional nature during the full moon, and then kind of tapering back off. So um, when they're closed, a little bit more crabby, a lot more boundaries between them and people to kind of protect themselves. But during the full moon, it's really hard to keep those boundaries, and Cancer moons end up like absorbing a lot of the emotional energy around them. So um, it's just these are by no means exhaustive understandings of the moon. Just some things that I've noticed. Then you have Leo moon. Leo moon is really self-focused. They are focused on their emotions, like very proud in what they believe and how they feel. Um, can be a little kind of emotionally pompous, like this is how I feel and this is how everybody should feel. Not always able to see where other people are coming from. It's not a terrible place for a moon to be, but it is a little bit too kind of ego or a self-centered place for that emotional reactions. So often these people will be very prideful, be very outgoing, and sometimes that's really cool, it's bombastic, but then they'll also have not really a great understanding of where other people are coming from, and that can be troublesome for especially some of the other signs, so some of the more water sign moons or water sign people that can be very very annoying, kind of create reaction. Moon in Virgo, not a terrible place for it. It's like it's kind of like Moon in Gemini in that it's always trying to get some objective understanding of the emotions, but it's a lot more like self-critical. It feels the feelings and then examines them after. It's almost like the Moon in Gemini like jumps to the examination before they've totally felt it. Virgo feels it, tries to understand why they're feeling the way that they're feeling, and then tries to resolve any issues that they might have later. So it's kind of a real learning moon. It can feel kind of detached to other people, but it's also really, these are people that are really not afraid to serve, other people, to really serve other people emotionally and be there to listen to people. So they often make really good friends, good people to bounce your feelings off of, because they've spent a lot of time examining like why they feel the way that they feel. Libra moon is actually a pretty good place for the moon, except that often feelings are only understood as reflected through other people. So Libra moons kind of learn about their emotions from what's accepted of them and what's not, and also like what's said to them when they're in an emotional experience. So if a Libra moon, for example, was angry, somebody might be like, "You're really angry. Why are you so angry at me?" Sometimes Libra moon didn't even know that they were in that period of anger until they see it reflected back to them. Also, Libra moons are very, I mean, if you harm a Libra moon emotionally, you're definitely getting it back. um, there's a real tit for tat, keeping the balance aspect to a Libra moon. Often, they will kind of avoid direct conflict, but just because they avoid direct conflict does not mean that they don't know how to get their licks in. So be be careful. The peace symbolism of Libra isn't always totally valid. You got the Scorpio moon. It's considered the moon's fall. So moon in Taurus was the exalted, the best position for the moon. Moon in Scorpio is the worst position for the moon. So, that's what it's been thought of for many many years. It has its own benefits though. Moon in Scorpio is basically just a kind of a suspicious position. Like you, as a moon in Scorpio, people will always be trying to understand what the motives behind what people said, what people are feeling. Like, so whatever they're saying, like what is there behind what they're saying, what's in their tone, what's in their body language, what are some ways that they might be trying to manipulate me? Is there any way that I can move them towards one of my positions? Like, the kind of negative rap of the Scorpio moon is that it's manipulative. Like you can understand how people's emotions work sometimes because you examine them like very deeply, and if you use that for your own benefit, it feels like a violation to a lot of people. So, there's aspects of the moon that are really, I mean, the moon is like a conveyor of feeling, and there's almost no sign that can feel deeper than Scorpio. So in some ways, if you can get past like the manipulative dark side of the Scorpio moon, it's a real gift of a moon, because it really allows you to have sympathy for like pretty much any emotional reaction, because many Scorpio moons have gone through them all. Then you got Sagittarius moon. Sagittarius moon is just kind of the wants to have fun, wants to understand things emotionally, like loves the fun emotions, doesn't always love the darker emotions, tends to like spiritually bypass heavy emotions, like try to go to, oh, I'm feeling this thing, I don't really want to be feeling this, I don't want to be down, I'm just gonna do some breathing exercise and be done with it. And then they put on the smile and they keep going, and often they're able to like kind of shut down negative emotions as they come. Often this can create real problems during like heavy, like say that there's big chart impacts on their moon where they can't like bypass the emotions as much by bypassing them so many times over the course of their life. When they finally have to deal with them, sometimes it's very difficult. It's like sometimes just being optimistic about the future is not enough to deal with emotions in the present, right? So it really keeps people pretty happy, keeps them going forward, especially if there's a chart where it's really heavy earth or really heavy water. Having that Sagittarius moon is sometimes really helpful to kind of still have that optimism, even in downtimes. Then you move on to Capricorn moon. And Capricorn moon is like, they recognize kind of the emotional debt that they have to other people. They're very responsible about their emotions, so very closed off in many ways. People will be like, are they even expressing how they're really feeling? Because they'll have kind of the poker face, and Capricorn moon it's really like the moon position of people that have learned how much their emotions can damage others. So they have a real responsibility not to do that. They're not trying to create new karma around their emotions. They're trying to really resolve things. And, what this means is they also hold a lot of their people that are around them to a high standard for how they conduct themselves emotionally, too. Because it is definitely true that a Capricorn moon can be goaded into reaction, right? Like they're not superhuman. They still have feelings, and they're very powerful, but they keep them under wraps so as not to harm other people around them. But if you push them far enough, they're going to come out, and when they do come out, it can be really, really harmful to the people that are fighting them. Don't make an enemy of them emotionally, especially. So Aquarius moon. Aquarius moon is how do you really describe it? So it's pretty detached. It's a lot like the Gemini moon, and then it kind of detaches from its feelings. But what it really tries to do is tries to understand like all the different emotional systems that are working not only in themselves but in others. So it's a very attentive moon sign. It's attentive to how people are interacting. They don't always feel they don't always understand totally why people are reacting the way that they do. So from a pretty early age, they start like trying to figure out like what these emotional reactions are, where they're coming from, how this fits into the rest of humanity, what's cultural, what's not. So it's like this pretty huge work that they do, where they're trying to understand like, I mean, they kind of see humans a little bit like computers sometimes. So if people are not acting like computers, they don't always know how to react to it, you know, how to deal with it. So yeah, there is that. There is like the ability for Aquarius moon to detach from their own feelings, instead try to understand other people's feelings as a replacement for it, and that can cause a lot of problems, like basically where their life gets really disrupted because they haven't dealt with shit, you know, as it was coming up. So then you got Pisces moon. Pisces moon is just really, really impacted by the feelings of people around them. So Pisces moon can be like the worst moon in the world, or it can be the best moon in the world, depending on who they're surrounded by. Really, the Pisces basically, so Cancer is really affected by emotions of people around them, but they put up walls to keep those emotions from overflowing. Scorpio is really affected by emotions around them, but they keep it mostly inside, locked down, only showing it with people that they can trust. Pisces doesn't have any of those natural defenses from other people's emotions. So if people are really negative around them, if people are going through really hard times around them, they'll just be there with them emotionally, whether they want to or not, whether it's their emotions or not. They're kind of, it's their kind of karmic duty, I guess, is to deal with that. So yeah, that's Pisces. Is you know, Pisces moon. It's really going to depend on their environment, whether it's positive or negative, how it excels. Well, that's it for now. It was fun talking about moon signs. If anybody has any questions, feel free to make a comment. And yeah, have a great one. Bye.